What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods back here with a 2 minute drill to wrap up your week. Friday, March 12th, man. I know everyone's looking forward to the weekend. We're getting into NCAA tournament time. All the conference tournaments are wrapping up this weekend if you're a big basketball fan. And we got Division 2 football, Division 3 football. We have a lot of teams playing this weekend. Jackson State's got a big game against Mississippi Valley. There's a lot of other smaller programs that you guys should really check out. Make sure to download that ESPN app. That way you can keep up with that. I'll be watching all weekend. I don't know why I shamelessly plugged ESPN like they need it. How about this? Why don't you subscribe to the Blue Bloods now on this YouTube channel, and I'll keep you up to date with it if you don't want to, feed into ESPN as much. But we are going to be talking about ESPN today, about an article that came out in terms of who is the next college football superpower. And they kind of gave credit to Clemson more so than anyone else. And I thought it was funny because, you think of college football superpower and you think of Alabama. And they gave it to Clemson because Clemson seemingly kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, they hire this wide receiving coach in-house, Dabo Sweeney. Everyone's like, okay, that's a weird hire, no head coaching experience, and he turns Clemson into what we see today, which is a national powerhouse. And I really think, in terms of what he is and what Clemson has become, I am so shocked at what they've become. Because I mean, guys, do you guys remember what Clemson was before Dabo Sweeney, before they got Deshaun Watson, before they're getting Trevor Lawrence's, before they're getting Taj Boyd's, and 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 just all the talent that they accrued? They were nobody, man. The ACC was run by other teams. Clemson was an afterthought in the ACC, and now they are running. And, the article mentions, recruiting success, which if you follow the podcast, I'm a huge recruiting guy. And they say recruiting is part of the process, but they don't think that's like it, though. I mean, Clemson's had four straight top 10 recruiting classes, but places like Georgia, places like Alabama, Ohio State at times all recruit at maybe a higher level than Clemson at times. But Clemson stays consistent right there in the top 10, but they just seem to be taking it that next step, I would say. And so the biggest criteria that they talk about in this article is the explosive key plays throughout the game that really are the difference between winning the ball game and losing the ball game. And Clemson has used that to win some important games throughout Dabo Sweeney's tenure. You look in the past 6 seasons, guys. This is a crazy stat. The past 6 seasons, the other 129 FBS teams have gained an average of 9.5 points per game from key plays only 11 times. So out of the 129 teams, only 11 have had that happen. Clemson has done this 5 times in the same time span. So you look at that and you're like, man, how is that even possible? So they are making use of their opportunities. Well, the perfect example is the 2019 national championship game. They were winning third down battles. They won the turnover battle. They won explosive plays. I mean, that Justin Ross catch up the seam where the safety bit down was an explosive, outrageous play. The pick six was right there. I mean, Clemson made the plays to win that game, and it won them a national championship with a true freshman quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who ended up becoming one of the greatest quarterbacks we've seen. And of course, there's other criteria in this article. It's not just key plays and recruiting, but that stat is something that seems to separate the Tigers. So ESPN identifies 5 potential teams, and so let's break them down here. I mean, number one is Georgia. That was the clear number one for them. Number two, Notre Dame. Number three, Oregon. Four, Penn State. And five, LSU. And you look at this and you're like, okay, so who do you guys think could be the one to kind of break through here out of these five? Well, I'm gonna give y'all my top three, and then we're gonna go from there. So first, I want to say I think Notre Dame's a way too high here. Number two is a little high. I think they could be one of the odds-on favorites. Maybe fifth for me, sixth. especially since they've made the playoffs 2 out of the last 3 seasons, but they've nailed it with their coach and Brian Kelly, I believe. But their quarterback play has not been up to that standard that we've seen these breakout teams. When Bama broke out with Saban, the quarterback position was okay, but it was really just the talent around them. And now that they've nailed the quarterback position, we've seen that level of production skyrocket. But for Clemson, it really started with the quarterback position. If we're talking about college football superpowers that kind of came out of nowhere, you look at Taj Boyd started off. Taj Boyd is such an underrated player in Clemson lore in college football that led to Deshaun Watson, and then it led to Trevor Lawrence, and now it's going to lead to DJ this year, and it could lead to onward and onward. And it's a cycle of good quarterback breeds good quarterbacks. And you look at Jalen Hurts being the first one at Bama to really break through. Then he gets to Tagovailoa. Then it gets to Matt Jones. He plays out of his mind. And now we're looking at Bryce Young coming in there and could be doing some special things. And I think that quarterback standard is what's going to hold Notre Dame back. They haven't had just that game-changing quarterback. They've had a lot of good quarterbacks, talented quarterbacks like Ian Book, but did you trust him on the biggest stage? Going into this Alabama game, going into that Clemson game, did you look yourself in the eye and say, Ian Book is going to win that game for them? Ian Book is going to make a play to win that game? No, I mean, he kind of got carried by Kyron Williams this year in that defense. And in the Rose Bowl, we kind of saw what really went down in terms of what I thought Ian Book was. They need that generational talent type quarterback that can win games in the biggest moments and deliver that. Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Cam Newton, a Tim Tebow, a Deshaun Watson, something like that. And they haven't had that. And I think that's why Tua is a little high. And I don't think Jack Cohen is going to be the guy for Notre Dame to do that. Now, in terms of the other two teams that I don't think should be on the list, LSU is a far shot here. They're not even the second best team in their division right now. Texas A&M is above them. Alabama has a stranglehold on the West right now. How are you going to be the next breakout college football team and you're not even a top two team in your own division, given your conference where Florida and Georgia probably are above you right now? So you're barely a top 5 team in your own conference, but you're going to break out and be the next college football superpower. LSU was 5. I think that's fair. I think with the turmoil with that program right now, it became even more of a long shot. And I don't know if Coach O is going to get as long of a stay as we thought. And then for Penn State, kind of the same thing goes. I mean, with Ohio State there in the Big Ten, is that door ajar for Penn State to really make that huge jump? And then you look what Tom Allen's doing over there in Indiana. Is Penn State even the second best program in their division? Last year they weren't. Last year, Indiana dominated that division, and I really think that's something to think about. And both programs have had QB struggles. LSU before Joe Burrow. LSU last year kind of maybe figured it out with Miles Brennan until he got hurt, and then later in the season with Max Johnson. But Penn State, Sean Clifford doesn't look like the guy for me. You know, today we released an interview with Audrey Snyder, for Penn State athletic beat reporter. So go listen to that. We break down Sean Clifford. So look at that. But you know, those are the 3 teams that I had a true argument against not including. And you know, I want to give you my top 3 here to end the show. Probably go a little bit overtime today, but my number 1 team, it's the obvious choice. It was ESPN's number 1. It should be your number 1. It's the Georgia Bulldogs, guys. Georgia is the obvious team to pick to take that next step and become a powerhouse national champion. And it's my choice too, because they've been one piece away from me for multiple years now. It was the QB instability. I know that sounds tough because they had Eason and Fromm there. They had Fields for a season, underutilized him, and now you saw what he did at Ohio State. They didn't have that game-changing QB. It's the same issue I ran into with Notre Dame. They had that game manager. Jake Fromm wasn't going to go out there and win that game for you. Eason might have later in his career, but he was a true freshman, then got hurt, and who knows what Eason would have been if he would have stayed at Georgia. Fields transfers out. We saw the just abysmal quarterback play at Georgia early in the season. I mean, Stetson Bennett and the name's escaping me right now. DeJuan Mathis, That was probably one of the worst quarterback situations in the entire country there. And then JT Daniels steps in, and you saw kind of what he did. And I think I'll get back to him in a second, but I want to shift to another negative. It also does not help that they have had to face some of the greatest Bama teams in history in their journey. That team they faced in the national championship, man, what are the odds they insert Tua Tagovailoa, who's going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks in history, and he hits a future Heisman winner in his freshman year in Devontae Smith to win on a 2nd and 26 play in overtime. I mean, unthinkable. You blow a huge lead in the national championship in your home state. Everything that could have went wrong for Georgia went wrong. They run into Tua again. They figure him out. Well, here comes the guy you figured out last time, Jalen Hurts. He leads a big comeback. I mean, they've had some huge just 1-2 play swings where this man, if one thing goes different, they might be a 2-time national champion if they get in that playoffs that year. But I think they nailed their coach, and that's why I kind of have him here as my number one. I think Kirby Smart has the experience now. He understands. He comes from a lineage of Nick Saban. He understands, and he flexes his prowess on the recruiting trail. If you could say anything, Georgia might be the best recruiting team in the country right there behind Bama. They're like a 1A, maybe 1B in terms of what Alabama and Georgia are doing in those states. I mean, Alabama this year really flexed on everybody, but in the previous few years, Georgia has signed the most blue chip prospects. They'll finally have a series of quarterbacks too that I think will give them a realistic chance to take that next step. I think JT Daniels could be a Heisman contender this year. He's the first really game-changing elite quarterback that they've had in a long time, and probably since Stafford, to be completely honest with you, and now has a spring practice, which he didn't have last year because he was hurt, to expand on his knowledge of the scheme and get some chemistry with those young wide receivers and this Georgia offense who really missed a lot of pieces last year. And then behind him, Brock Vandagriff, a 5-star. Next in line, he's probably the most hype recruit since Stafford, definitely the most hype recruit in the Kirby Smart era, even above Eason, and should be able to continue any momentum that Daniels creates this season. I expect Georgia they've solved their quarterback issue. Kirby Smart is on a roll, flexing recruiting. They're in a dominant conference. They probably control the East. Florida's right there, but outside of Florida, no one's touching them. The door's open. If they can get to Alabama, and I don't think they have to get through Alabama in the regular season, they can still make it even with a loss to Bama. Georgia is the number one candidate here, and I think Kirby Smart is going to be the coach that absolutely takes down Saban. And take down Saban by like his assistants. My bad. I should have clarified that. He'll probably be the first assistant to take down Saban. Saban's undefeated against assistants. So we'll see there. And my second team, it's another SEC team. I know SEC bias coming from a podcast based in SEC country. I promise you my third team is not SEC. But it's hard not to pick this team. I have this team as like my 1B team to the Bulldogs because I think their head coach really closes the gap, and that is Jimbo Fisher and the Texas A&M Aggies. I think they are right there. I think they've proven that, the head coach and Jimbo Fisher has proven he can win a national championship at another place, recruit at an all-time high level, bring that to Texas A&M, install it with a way bigger financial backing than what you might have at Georgia. They've had top 7 recruiting classes for 3 straight years. They're on track again this year. And they're right up there with the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Georgias in terms of powerhouses in recruiting. Defensive line, secondary, and O-line were their biggest rebuilds. They had to get SEC quality talent at those 3 places. They have loaded up at those positions. 5-star safety Jones coming in last year, a 5-star defensive tackle this year, and another 4 or 5-star, depending on where you look at defensive end coming in. They have built those positions up. They're ready to compete. You saw that this year. If they get into the playoffs, they play Bama probably closer than Notre Dame would. And, the quarterback position is where I want to talk about. They've had Kellen Mond for what it feels like 15 years. I feel like Kellen Mond's been playing. He came into A&M when Brady went to the Patriots. It feels like, but they're going to have Haynes King, a very highly touted kid out of Texas, a few classes back with real superstar potential. He's a 4-5 running kid. He has elite intangibles and playmaking skills, which are going to be important in winning these big games against Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss. He is slightly undersized. He doesn't have elite arm strength, but he's accurate enough and athletic enough to make plays to make up for that and to avoid danger and outside the pocket. And I think this is why A&M is right there at the threshold and could be one or two pieces away from, I guess, from the deciding factor in the college football playoff race. And this program's development is on a huge, huge arc here. Jimbo Fisher's probably going to win the national championship at A&M. It's coming sooner rather than later. But can they be consistent? Can they keep Jimbo Fisher long enough to make it a dynasty, to be a powerhouse? That's the real question here. Haynes King has to develop, but I think he will. A&M is right there at the doorstep, right behind Georgia as my 1B team here, my number 2 team. My number 3, a little bit more of a long shot, but I think it's an interesting thing. I know some of my SEC guys are going to be like, what are you even talking about? It's the Oregon Ducks, Mario Cristobal and them boys out there in Eugene. And the theme continues here. It's another team that nailed the coaching position. I think Cristobal is one of the best coaches in the country. It's a major question at quarterback, which is why they're last on my list here. Replacing Justin Herbert. If they would have had Justin Herbert again under Mario Cristobal for his whole development, I think this is a whole nother story here. But it's an excruciatingly hard task to replace someone like Justin Herbert with the size, arm strength, athleticism. But I think Anthony Brown and Todd Thompson, who are the two people competing for the starting job, they're on deck, and I think they're going to deliver some special things to Eugene. And the thing people overlook is the defensive rebuild that has occurred. They have 2 5-star linebackers, Justin Flo, Noah Sewell. Kayvon Thibodeau's probably the best edge rusher in the country. They have an elite secondary. A lot of them left, but I think they have some young guys that are really going to step up and break out this year. They're starting to get some wide receivers in there. They had the running back in C.J. Verdell. They're probably going to have to replace him. And now they just got to get the quarterback. The offensive line has been there. I mean, Penei Sewell was not a fluke. They got some more guys that are just as good. And for me, it's one of the best defenses in the country. It was coming into last year. It should be right up there with the best of them this next year. Well, the one thing Oregon has over the previous 2 teams is that they are the best team without question in their conference and definitely in their division. USC is probably their biggest competition. They'll only have to face them in the Pac-12 championship, and they're set to win. If this quarterback situation develops, I think they are set to win the Pac-12 championship for the foreseeable future, almost guaranteed. They've won, I believe, 2 in a row now, and I really think 3 in a row is coming this year, depending on how Kedon Slovis is. But after Kedon Slovis, USC has some major holes they have to fill. I don't know if they have his replacement completely nailed down, so we're going to see about USC. But Oregon is the only program with a long-term outlook that says Pac-12 championship year in and year out. The downside, though, because of that, the Pac-12 doesn't get much respect. Can Oregon find a way to sneak into the playoffs? That is the million-dollar question here. I think if they get in, they win a semifinal game or 2, or make a statement where they do like Oklahoma, play someone to the last second in overtime or a last-second game. They could be somewhat like a Clemson, where a lot of these other ACC teams don't get the respect they deserve, but Clemson's going to be in that top 4. And they're gonna say that's one of the best teams in the country. I think I see that in Cristobal in this Oregon team. I know it sounds crazy now. I think Oregon is a very sneaky pick for this segment. I have them at 3, but they have to nail this next QB. Is Thompson going to be the guy? Is Brown going to be the guy? They're going to have to make that right decision, just like Dabo did, picking Trevor Lawrence over Kelly Bryant. If they can run away with their conference like I think they can, get their shot at the playoffs, this could be a very interesting option. And I think it's one that we need to look at more closely as we look at who's going to start dominating college football in the coming years. But guys, that is my top three. Give me your top three in the comments. Let me know who you think could be the next college football superpowers. Give me your top three. Give me your main one if you have one that you're just very, very confident about. And while you're at it, guys, as we wrap up this week, wrap up this 2-minute drill, go ahead, subscribe to our YouTube channel right now as you're watching this. Click that notification bell on the top right. That way you're notified anytime we drop any content for y'all. We love the interaction. We love you guys supporting us, man. It's the Bluebloods family. Go ahead, go catch up on our Big 10 and 31 days too. We got some great interviews there, breaking down teams from all around the country. Audrey Snyder out now, Penn State, writes for The Athletic, Penn State beat reporter. It was an amazing interview. I had a blast, so make sure to check that out. We also have some backlogs of just Big 10 and 31 days and ACC in 28 days if you haven't caught those yet for the month of February. Next month, Big 12 time. I'm excited for that. But guys, y'all know y'all can find the 2-minute drill Monday through Friday on our YouTube channel right here. So please subscribe. A lot of y'all have been doing it. We've been growing exponentially in terms of views and subscribers on here. So I really appreciate y'all for that. But for myself, for the Bluebloods, y'all have an awesome weekend, and I will see y'all Monday. But I'm out.